exciting. This was something new for the area.
Joe Connolly was an engineer at KBST Radio when TV came calling.
3, 4, 5 television stations in the state of Texas. The radio station was owned by Jack Wallace and Bob Whitkey, who was the editor of the local newspaper. They had some financial help. Houston Hart, who was a big newspaper man out of South Texas, became involved in it. They got the okay from the Federal Communications Commission. That began the process. The foundation was laid for the tower base, and up she went.
I was hired for the television station, but the television station was not completed at that time. We were like worms in a bucket down at KBST, and I was a young married woman with 2 little bitty children, but I'd always been interested in all that kind of thing, and in college had done plays, and I have no idea. I just decided to go and make application.
For 10 years, Joanne did talk shows like Channel 4 Calling, Alexander's Sketchbook, and Hemp Hill Wells Showcase.
Jerry Lee Lewis was coming to town, and so we saved the whole show. And at the last minute, he didn't come, and he sent some of the band. And I mean, did you ever try to just interview a Stomp or Linkletter? He was just as personable as he seemed on TV.
TV solidified and brought more immediacy to Big Spring's connection to the world.
Jack Wallace, I don't even know whether they have teletype machines anymore, but he was standing reading it, and all of a sudden he said, "Son of a blank!" The Soviets had launched Sputnik. The Russians had beat us to space.
A live remote bus brought coverage of a Steers preseason football game, a local swim meet, and local church services every Sunday.
One Sunday we might have First Baptist Church, the next Sunday we might have a Methodist Church.
From sign-on as KBST on January 15, 1956, through ownership and name changes that made it KEDY in 1957 and KWAB in 1963, one name on the station never changed.
He was the guy that was in everybody's living room.
On KBST TV, KBST Radio, and in the Herald, it was Here and There with Bruce Frazier. One of his 10 kids, Donald, remembers.
He was a college professor. He was a cotton farmer. He was an entrepreneur. He was a social activist, community leader. He was a great dad, visionary.
And in the 50s and 60s, the most trusted man in media in Howard County and the surrounding area.
The news or the weather, you wanted some sort of a local color. There was Bruce dancing in your living room in black and white.
It's a series of stories that I have written, and I call it Fables for a Seventh Son. So I wrote these stories to please my seventh son, and usually they have a moral or some lesson to teach. So if by some chance I'm not able to complete the raising of this seventh son, at least the values and lessons learned in a life could be preserved.
Bruce was every man, especially when he swallowed a fly during a food commercial on live TV or promoted the rattlesnake roundup.
The Chamber of Commerce brought a trash can full of snakes out.
Son Ed was at the TV station that night.
Couldn't really see much down in the bottom of that trash can when the camera was looking in there. Bruce just took the trash can, poured them out on the floor where you could see them, and then ran around the studio and caught 4 or 5 snakes and put them back in the trash can. I was riding home with him, and I asked him, "Well, when did you learn to catch snakes with your bare hand like that?" And he said, "Tonight."
Channel 4 cranked out this live music show once a week.
It's time now for Ben Hall and the Circle 4 Ramblers.
Today's black nights, I think of you.
Anyhow, when Ben got to Big Spring, he and wife Dina, who played the bass, formed the Circle 4 Ramblers. Here's a rare recorded Ramblers practice session at the Hall's house on Auburn Street in the late 50s. And while in Big Spring, Ben and Dina crossed paths with and did recording sessions for people like Roy Orbison and this song that went to number 2 on the charts by the New Beats. One Circle 4 Rambler, Big Spring cop / steel guitarist Weldon Myrick went on to play 32 years with the Grand Ole Opry and be named to the Steel Guitar Hall of Fame. For the full-time staff at Channel 4, you had to be able to do a lot with a little.
News director at KWAB-TV, Channel 4.
John Cohn was 23 when he took that job.
The guy that went out and, took pictures of news stories. The guy that did interviews, that was me too. The guy that... So it was a one-man department.
Run-of-the-mill stories were covered with Polaroid pictures shown with this tele-op machine. But for major stories...
We had it was a Bolex 16-millimeter camera, silent film, and it was black and white. There was an automatic developer, and it would come out. You just grab it, hand it to the engineer, go on the air, and just wing it. I would say it was mostly community friendly. Now, we did cover accidents, fires, anything major. Of course, Friday night, we would do during the football season, all of the high school football scores. I invented a high school, they were the Ronaldo Mustang. All of the players and the coach were named after brands of liquor. The coach was Jack Daniels. We had the Walker brothers, Johnny and Hiram, both receivers. Irving William I.W. Harper. There was an Indian on that team. They just called him O. Crow. And they ran the famous stagger wing formation. Every week we would do an interview show with the Big Spring High School football coach, Herman Smith. He had been watching our coverage of the high school scores. We were sitting there waiting to begin the show. Coach Smith asked, "What do you know about this stagger wing formation that Ronaldo's running?" Because, of course, Ronaldo was just beating the tar out of everybody. Coach Smith wanted to know about it for the Big Spring Steers.
In 1968, we were the first TV station in the U.S. ever to show a tornado live, one that dangled over the Cosden oil refinery.
Yeah, we rolled it out the back of the garage and opened up the garage door, the big zoom lens, and shot the picture, most definitely.
We couldn't afford a videotape machine until we bought one on the cheap in 1967.
It was dropped when it was being unloaded from the truck. And, of course, it used vacuum tubes, so most of them smashed. The frame was dented up. They filed an insurance claim and wrote the thing off as a total loss. Well, then some RCA engineer bought it for, a song and sat in his garage and rebuilt it. Anyway, it ended up in the control room at Channel 4.
They were going to add another antenna for some kind of remote, but it was probably about 15 or 20 feet long. This is kind of a poor boy way of doing things, but we had a big long rope tied onto it with a pulley at the top of the tower there, came down and tied on the rear end of a Ford station wagon. So we were going to pull the tower up. Well, that little station wagon didn't really have enough poop to do it all. We got down to the top and it stalled out. So me and the chief engineer was standing there behind the car talking, wondering what we were going to do. And about that time, that rope broke and that antenna came shooshing down through the air, jammed into the dirt about 3 foot deep. And we looked at each other and then nearly fainted because that thing didn't miss us for about 6 feet.
Competition pretty much ended local Channel 4 operations in the 70s, and the old transmitter just rebroadcast another station's signal. New technology even ended the need for that in 2009. I stood on that old tower right before they demolished it in 2014, remembering being a Channel 4 studio cameraman and at 17 getting to do news, weather, and sports, leading to a lifelong profession that included interviewing presidents and creating a nationwide program called Wednesday's Child to find homes for adoptable kids. So to all of you who watch so that all of us could work here and beyond, please don't forget what we did together. I'm Jack Bowen reporting for Channel 4 News.